Now I'd like to share one of my most favorite conflict resolution techniques, the formal practice of dialogue. Here I've placed a photo of 120 Middle Eastern Partnership Initiative, or MEPI, State Department selected fellows, engaging in dialogue around key topics they're facing in the Middle East and Northern Africa. The word dialogue is of Greek origin, and it means moving through the word. Dialogue is a conversation based on learning, not convincing, not winning. It's not about just sharing ideas, but we're actively looking at how we might solve a problem together. Your role, especially as a dialogue moderator leading change, is to try to gather and integrate information from diverse sources. Our work in dialogue is to see each person in the circle as equal and providing valuable information. At every moment, there are 4 different types of conversation. One, we might find ourselves in a debate, win-lose, where we're trying to gather our position and make it the superior. Debate, as we've discussed at the beginning of the course, uses the metaphor argument as battle. 2, we may be just discussing and it's light and there's no argument. With dialogue, we want to take an argument and instead of seeing it as a battle or a fight, is to use the metaphor of argument as school. We see discord as an opportunity to learn and that our opponents can be our teachers. The ultimate goal of dialogue is that I become better when I'm in conversation with you. 4th, there's a type of conversation called deliberation, where after you've engaged in dialogue, we work to come up with potential solutions. In deliberation, we gather facts, approaches, and statistics to develop our envisioned win-win solution. Deliberation usually follows dialogue. Here are the ground rules of dialogue. I recommend groups of 6 to 10. Over 12 people, folks get nervous and they don't speak as freely. Ask people to turn off all their electronics and use some type of talking piece, something that people can hold that says that the person who is talking and has the talking piece is to be listened to, and everyone else is to be working on learning. You want to work on learning and not convincing in general, and keep your answers short and succinct. Usually, questions should be answered in a minute or less. When you're in a dialogue or serving as a moderator, remember that tower analogy we spoke of earlier and encourage people to listen to everyone's window. You can explain this analogy, that we're all in one tall tower and that I may be looking out a window and think it's a sunny day and there's lots of opportunity, but the opposing person's perspective, they might see a tornado or a hurricane. In dialogue, our goal is to hear from everyone's window. When you are going to propose a dialogue, you really want to define a dialogue topic or question that draws people in, that makes them want to be part of the conversation. How can we make this organization better? Should women be presidents? Is democracy possible or preferable? Using an opening dialogue question that has some fire or controversy to it is helpful because dialogue is designed to resolve conflict, to move us forward. Questions that have us talking about theories or opinions really take us into discussion in our heads or to debate. In dialogue, we want to frame a question that calls people to share from their personal perspectives. Other questions that might create rich dialogue would be, what makes you feel welcome on a team? What are the elements of an extraordinary group, and how might we foster that here? Here's some tips for when you're facilitating a dialogue. Use the talking piece. At the beginning, it may feel silly, but as soon as disagreement or conflict arises, it will save you. I highly recommend having a piece that symbolizes who's talking and that everyone else is to be listening. Number 2, I cannot recommend enough sharing ground rules at the beginning of dialogue. And remember that the group might test you to see if you're actually going to use them. This is the way the group checks that you are going to create a safe enough space so we can engage in good conversation. So someone might start to talk without the talking piece, and your job is to return to the ground rules and remind them that this is what makes the conversation productive. Also encourage everyone to speak from themselves using I, not from you or they. This makes a much more powerful conversation, and it keeps us speaking from our own window instead of the window of the media or our parents or another authority figure. Encourage folks to share from their own truth and personal experience. And you might want to use yes and as much as possible as you hear opposing viewpoints. I might say, yes, I'm hearing this, and I'm noticing that both of you believe in this, and share where that common ground is, where they're standing in the mandorla together. Your welcoming nature as a moderator really helps for dialogue success. Watch if the conversation is opening and people are getting more excited and people are drawn in, or if it's closing down and people are backing up. If you keep saying yes, and I'm hearing this, and this, and this, you'll gather people into seeing the mandorla, seeing that open ground. Last, ask people if there's any other questions that might help us to dive in deeper. When I get nervous, I always go back to tell me more. So that's my mantra. I encourage you to practice using dialogue in your organization and even in your family. Notice the difference that occurs. We can also use this practice in every conversation where we adopt dialogue principles, model being a learning leader. I hope you will practice often and create a global culture of dialogue. I want to leave you with this quote from the groundbreaking choreographer Twyla Tharp. Her leadership in the world of modern dance is undisputed. Here she describes how to live your life as a dialogue. Everything is raw material. Everything is relevant. Everything is usable. Everything feeds my creativity. But without proper preparation, I cannot see it, retain it, or use it.